Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I will say note to file, don't ever follow the genocide guy. I wouldn't be here without Jason Goodman. Jason's a remarkable young guy who really made this possible for me. In fact, Jason wouldn't be here without his mom, who I understand is here. So thanks to Jason and thanks for his mom. Let me dive in. Okay, so I guess from the first talk, the first question about this is that a doll or is that a mind? You look at this picture, you look at this photo, and you say, mayor. You say a successful mayor of our biggest city. Okay, he had a little bit of trouble with the snow this winter, but he's done a lot of good in New York. I look at that picture and I say founder. You look at that picture and you say entrepreneur, the man whose name is ubiquitous in the trading world. His name sits on everybody's desk. It has to do with analytics. It's a big business. I look at that picture and I say founder. You look at this picture and you say maybe possible presidential candidate, a guy who has the talent, the background, the skill, maybe to lead our country, maybe to do great things for our country. I look at that picture and I say founder. Very good. And in the next 16 minutes and 38 seconds, I'm going to tell you why founders rock. Because you see, I'm a founders groupie. I spend my entire life hanging out with founders, following founders, supporting founders, learning from founders. I'm a true groupie. Now, for someone in the venture capital business, you probably thought I was going to talk about one of these two topics, entrepreneurship or innovation. And those are two very common, very, very important words. But you know what? I think they're overused. Everything today is innovation, and everyone is an entrepreneur. Consider, for example, we have entrepreneurs, we have social entrepreneurs, we have corporate entrepreneurs, I'm not sure what those are. And in sort of the ultimate oxymoron, I'm told now we have federal government entrepreneurs. So as evidence that the word is overused, I'm not going with entrepreneurship, I'm not going with innovation, I'm going with founders. So you might be saying, wait a second. How can something that doesn't have a definition in Wikipedia be important? And the day I figure out how to edit Wikipedia, it will have this definition. These are my words. So what is a founder? A founder is someone who impacts our world. They change our world. They create goods and services that improve everyday life for many, many people. They find ways to add value. They do so with passion and persistence over long, sustained periods of time. They build through teams and organizations that lead, inspire, and influence. A founder is all of these things, not just a couple, not just one, not just an inventor, not just all of these things. And someone who's very, very successful in our business, a guy named John Doerr, likes to say, ideas are easy, but teams, founders win. So that's the theme. Here we go. Here's the qualities. I mean, I have everything back to Jason. I have everything up here except loves your parents. But this is the person that I think becomes a founder. Somebody with insight and vision. Those two are related. They're not exactly the same. Someone with passion and determination. Related, but not the same. And somebody who leads and who is a builder. And probably the one word that doesn't make any sense to you is builder. It's sort of a pedestrian word. But founders build. Sometimes one brick at a time. Sometimes 3, 5, 7 bricks at a time. Founders build. They build, and the metaphor is very, very valid. They build big, important, stable structures over long periods of time. So, you all know who this is. You may know of George Washington as our founding father. I know of him as our founding founder. And if you think of what he built a great country, one step at a time. To me, he's the role model, he's the ultimate. Let's see if we can get another sense of what I'm talking about. Here's 6 what I would call iconic founders. I could have put dozens of others up. Hopefully you know who each of these 6 people are. If you don't, here's the logo of the organizations and companies that they created. Starbucks, Teach for America, Apple, Microsoft, Dell, Facebook. And you know, to show that some of these are for-profit, some are not, some of these are big companies, some are newer, some are old, but they're all important companies where founders built them step by step. And one measure is the number of employees. There's a lot of employees in each of these companies. So there's sort of there's sort of impact, if you will, on our world. And that look at this, right? These are big, big numbers. And while I was thinking about metrics to talk about founders, I came up with one more. Now, some of you are going to say, stock prices don't matter. It's just some capitalistic manifestation of discounted cash flows, who cares? But to me, these arrows, which are reflective of the stock prices, the top one is Apple, the middle one is Google, and the green one is the S&P, which to me represents non-founders. Those are our big industrial companies. And guess what? I think there's more going on here and in the slope of these curves than just the stock prices. I think these curves, these lines indicate success, they indicate impact, they indicate employment. I've already talked about that. And they say something about the future and dominance and providing value and adding value to our society. So yes, stock prices are not the end, but I thought it would be interesting. I have one more founder I want to talk about. I'm going to sort of go from the high level now to something a little more local. Here's a founder, right? Everybody knows who this is. This is President Kim, a founder of Partners in Health, along with his co-founders, Ophelia Dahl and Paul Farmer. 11,000 employees, sustained value, changing our world, long periods of time, insight, vision, passion, building. Okay, just to be sure we sort of have the hang of it. Oh, by the way, we all know where he ended up. I think it's actually a pretty interesting question. How will President Kim's background and experience as a founder impact his tenure as president of Dartmouth? I think we're already seeing ways that that's happened, and we'll see more. I'm excited about that, but not the topic for today. Okay, so let's just see if we're getting a hang of it. Who's this? Thomas Edison, founder, invented light bulbs. Inventing is not enough, not a founder. But hang on a second. He also started General Electric. Founder, 300,000 employees, sustained value, changing our world, bringing good things to life. Okay, who's this? Oprah, founder? Absolutely. Big network, right? Big enterprise, hiring a lot of people, changing people's lives. Who's this? No way, not a founder. Anyone? Albert Einstein, not a founder, right? A lot of inventions, smart guy, but not a founder. How about these two fellas? The Google boys, definitely founders, right? Okay, so I think we're getting a hang of it, and now let me tell you where I'm going next. I'm going to tell you three very personal stories about three founders who I believe have changed our world and who are very, very important to me. These are people that I admire immensely. These are people who I spend a lot of time from, and remember, I'm a founder groupie, so I follow them around, and I've learned a lot from each of them. And starting on the left is, they're all different. On the left, we have Mark Levin. Mark Levin founded a biotech company called Millennium, a company focused on the big vision, how to take genomics and the whole byproduct of the Human Genome Project and turn it into a company that would change forever the way drugs were discovered and impact healthcare. Big, bodacious idea. The middle founder is Mike Danziger. Mike Danziger started something called Stepping Stone. Mike was inspired by what he believed was the potential of young kids. And so I'll tell you his story. And then, but very, very different, right? He's trying to get kids into college, from the inner city into college. Mark's trying to solve healthcare. And the third founder is a guy named Bruce Cerullo. You've never heard of Bruce Cerullo, but I can tell you he's one of the most important guys I've ever met. Bruce saw value. Bruce saw an opportunity in a company called Travcore that everybody else gave up on. And he created incredible value, an incredible place to work, employed a lot of people. He changed our world. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through case studies of each of these three, and I'm going to try to convince you of two things. Number one, they're just like all the rest of us. And number two, they're not anything like the rest of us. So here's a picture just to remind me to tell you about Mark Levin's childhood. He was raised in the Midwest. Any of you who are my vintage know that having a radio flyer was very important to your childhood. That's a radio flyer. You can't see it very well in the picture. And Mark Levin's father was in the retail business. There's the Levin department store. After that, in St. Louis, he had a shoe store. And the shoe store is important to Mark's life because Mr. Levin would hire sales associates from the local high school, and it would turn out that every day that Mr. Levin would bring in new associates for interviews, Mark would happen to be there. And it does turn out that Mark married one of those associates. So no fooling Mark. Here's a fun picture. When Mark took his first job, it was with Miller Brewing. He was in North Carolina. That's his wife, Becky. And again, you can't see this very well, but I think it's really important. So they moved to North Carolina. Becky's in school. Mark's working at Miller Brewing, 7 in the morning to 7 at night every day. But they decided to open a donut store. Why? Because. And so Mark learned how to bake. Mark got up every morning at 3 o'clock, made the donuts, and this was the ad that they ran the first day they opened up. By the way, this looks like Groupon to me. Look at this coupon. Large soda, 18 cents. This was Groupon long before Groupon. All right. Mark then goes on to found Millennium. He goes from Miller Brewing to Genentech, and then he founds Millennium, which was nay Mendelian, you know why. And so look at this is the very first meeting I ever had with Mark. He gave me 2 pieces of paper. Here's the first one. It's me and Mark. There's no company. There's no nothing. Even the name was wrong. But look what he says. He wants to be the acknowledged global leader, not just the leader, the global leader. And not just the global leader, the acknowledged leader. Incredible, right? What an incredible set of goals. And here is how he backed that up, because founders build organizations. So look at what's in red. He talks about culture. He talks about outstanding people, creative, passionate, goal-oriented. I don't need to read this to you, but this is the definition of a founder. He was way, way ahead of me. 8 years later, he's running a public company. It's now called Millennium. Here's a picture of him on the cover of the Boston Globe. And you can't read but the motto of the company now, nothing's impossible. Again, this is what founders are all about. And finally, I have another picture of him. Here he's called the Pied Piper. It says things in the article like he's relentless in recruiting. Why? Because founders recruit people, build teams, and he has a cult-like following. So this is my founder number 1 story, Mark Levin. By the way, part of what you have to do is be a little irreverent, have a sense of humor. Here he is at the annual Halloween party, dressed in drag, with his wife and his daughter Samantha. And of course, this has a happy ending. Mark sold this company with 2,500 employees to Takeda. It still exists today. It has 2 drugs in the market. And I think someday they'll cure cancer. I'm hopeful of that. Sold it for $9 billion. Here's number 2 case study. This is Mike Danziger. Mike Danziger grew up to a well-to-do family in New York City. This is his graduation picture from Collegiate, an independent school in New York City. He went on from there to Yale. And Mike thought, you know what? I want to be a school teacher. And so here's kind of a not very good picture, but that's Mike teaching. This is old technology. That's Mike teaching. And Mike got turned on by the kids in the classroom. He was at St. Mark's, a great independent school outside of Boston. But Mike also realized that he wasn't impacting the kids who really needed the chance to go to college. Kids that were in the inner city, kids that were not having high school experiences like at a nice place at St. Mark's. And so he and his partner, John Simon, started Stepping Stone in 1991. And here's the first grant they got. And you can't read it, but it's from the Balfour Foundation. So here's a guy who had a couple of years of school teaching, standing in front of the blackboard, and he had the guts, because he's a founder, to go to this foundation, and it shows here, he got $50,000, and that's how he started. And the idea was to go into the inner city, to take kids who had the potential, place them into independent schools, place them into exam schools, stay with them every step of the way, get them into college, and help them succeed. And this program took off. Can you imagine being a parent trusting your kid to this guy who has no experience? But they did. And look at how it grew. From $50,000 in 91 to $1.4 million in the year 2000, 10 years later. Incredible job, Mike Danziger. And here I took this. This is from his website. And look what he calls himself. Message from the founder. And he has the nice Franklin Delano Roosevelt quote. In fact, when I called Mike and I said, Mike, do I have your permission to talk about you with this group as a founder? He said, well, why me? And I said, well, because you're the quintessential founder. And he said to me, well, aren't all founders by definition quintessential? Last example. And, you know, I said Bruce Cerullo was important to me. He may not like me after he sees some of the pictures I put in here. But here's Bruce Cerullo as a kid. Just a nerdy, we all have these pictures of ourselves. We may not share them, but you all have them. Nerdy little kid. There's his house. He lived in a 1,000-square-foot house in Wakefield, Massachusetts with 3 brothers and his parents. They had foster kids living with them because his parents didn't want anybody to not have a home. And I put this picture in because his high school class you can't see, but upper left, his classmate was future Senator Scott Brown from Wakefield. How about that? Here's Bruce with his parents, and I haven't talked about parents and families much, but Bruce's parents were very, very important to him. That's them at their 50th wedding anniversary. Imagine that. Bruce's dad was the janitor at Wakefield High, and Bruce's mom was the secretary to the local hospital administrator. There he is, becoming a member of the Catholic Church. You can't see it, but John F. Kennedy's in the background, and right below him is the Pope. Bruce's parents were incredibly important. I've met them, I spent time with them, I adore them. That's what founder groupies do. You meet the family. And this is an incredibly important family. One more picture of Bruce in his background. Here he is on the wrestling team. And if you think about it, being a wrestler has a lot to do with being a founder. So he won't like this. There he is. But this is the UNH wrestling team. Okay, so what did Bruce do? Bruce bought this company. This company, you don't need to be from Tuck to know that when the numbers are going like this, that's not a good thing. And this was a company that provided nursing services. Nobody wanted to be involved with nurses. This is a while ago. Nurses were not appreciated. And look at this. Again, you don't need to even know what the lines are, but they're both going down. Cannot be good. The one on the left is census, the number of nurses employed, and the one on the right is length of stay. So Bruce saw value. My point here is Bruce, as a founder, saw value where no one else did. And so this is what he did. He bought Travcore in 1994 after this dreadful performance, and he created an amazing company. He became the cheerleader, the visionary. He became all of those things that I said. And again, I have to go quickly. Here's what ends up happening. He bought it right at the bottom with 400 employees. And look, over the next 4 years, he created a real business with happy employees. He added a lot of value to our society. By the way, he sold it for $100 million. First thing he did was he helped his parents build an addition on their house for all the foster kids. And here's Bruce today. And I put this picture in because this is Bruce with his family. You know what? Founders get remarried. This is his second wife. That happens to founders too. So here he is with his kids. Amazing guy. Okay, so what I did was I tried to say to myself, what are the common characteristics? How can I describe for you what founders are, what they look like? I mean, this is not an idea per se. This is my idea of the kinds of people that change our world. That's my idea for this talk. So what is it? Is it where they were born and raised, or what their father did, or their college? But what occurred to me was, since one of them's short, one of them's medium, one of them's tall, all of us can be founders. If you were paying attention, I used each and every one of these words today, and so you'll go back and check. But what I'm trying to say is these are incredible people. These are people that make a difference in our world. It reminds me of the very first day I was here, and I went to whatever that ceremony is called the very, very first day. It's over in Thompson Arena, and President Kemeny said, an amazing guy, a founder in some ways, President Kemeny said, you know, you may be wondering why you're here and what the purpose is of your Dartmouth education. And we were, of course, all wondering. And so he said, well, let me tell you. He said, it's to prepare you to make a contribution to society. And he went on to talk about how we could make a contribution to society. It was a very broad and diverse list, which had all of us leaving thinking, you know what, we can do that. And that's what these founders do. But importantly, here's another founder, Henry Ford, an incredible founder, maybe not an incredible human being, but an incredible founder. And here's what he says. He says, basically, it's up to us. Either we can or we can't. Right? And so one of the things I was thinking about this morning driving up here is that I have a proposal. Why don't we make Dartmouth the place for founders? Why don't we invite founders to come and speak to us, to come and tell their stories, and to come and teach us? Why don't we have founders come and spend time here? Why don't we make this a place where founders want to be? So if we think that's a good idea, we can make some noise and we'll get that going, and I'll help. Or if you think it's a lousy idea, forget it. Anyway, I've tried to, in these few minutes, give you a sense of a group of people which I think are very, very important. So now, when you look at this picture, you say, founder. Thank you very much.